All right, so in this video, I want to talk about one of the probably most not talked about laws that there are out there and principles is the law of entropy. So the law of entropy, by definition, is that an object at rest that remains at rest will move more and more towards disorder. So if you think about it like this, it's just like, well, what is he talking about? So think about like your garden. So if you look while outside and you're doing lawn care and stuff like that, and you do it all really nice, you edge it, you weed the beds and everything like that, you see the garden, it's like, this looks amazing. Then like, don't do anything for a couple weeks and see what happens. You got weeds, the grass is overgrown, your edges are all gone, they're coming over into the driveway. It looks like chaos, okay? Also, think about like, if you go to get your hair done or your nails done, a manicure, a pedicure, you go to, the salon, they do like a nice little skin fade, it looks awesome, and it's just like, or the women are, what are you guys getting, like Bellagio? I don't know, Bellagio? That doesn't sound right. Balayage? Maybe that's it. So it's one of those things, if you think about it, you go and get yourself presentable, but then all of a sudden like a couple weeks go by and now all of a sudden your nails are getting longer, they're growing, your hair is looking all disheveled, your face is starting to get all the, for my guys, you're starting to get facial hair coming through, you're growing out beards. It's like everything is moving towards chaos, right? And the cool part about it, if you think about it, is like the beautiful world that we live in is all because of chaos. That's why no two people, do the same acts and mannerisms, and that's why no buildings really look the same. Like everything is just like moving towards disorder, which is really cool, but at the same time, sometimes it's not. So I'm here to tell you guys that like entropy is showing up not only in your business, it's not only showing up with your patients, with your staff, but also your personal life. So I want you guys to be aware of this principle. So knowing this, just know that everything left by itself is going to move towards disorder. That's why a lot of times like we see clinic owners that they grow to a certain level and they just go into sustainment mode, and then all of a sudden like a lot of disruption starts to show up. The staff starts to quit, patients start to no-show or cancel, they start to lose those patients, they start to lose those providers, and they start to lose money. And then ultimately we start to see bigger clinics. What happens is that when they were smaller, they didn't have a lot of issues, but now as they're growing and scaling, there's more issues coming up. So what happens is when entropy starts to get louder, and usually entropy is about 10% in most businesses that are very systemized, they have really good operations. What happens is when entropy starts to get louder, most business owners stop growing because they're like, as we're growing, that entropy and those 911s and those fires to put out becomes louder. And then they're saying like, oh, we gotta stop growing because like there's just more people complaining and stuff like that. So what we're doing isn't working. I'm here to tell you guys that right now, I want you to follow a 10% rule. So what 10% means is that we expect fully that 10% of your patients or 10% of your staff or 10% of anything in your life, there's going to be a level of entropy, disorder, chaos to it. So if you have 10 patients a week and you're sitting there and you're like, well, we might only have like one patient problem. If you have 100 visits a week, you might have 10 patient problems to deal with per week. And if you have 1,000 visits a week, you might have 100. So ultimately, I just want you guys to know that like in order to squash that entropy, we have to be really, really dialed in on our systems and operations. But most importantly is we have to figure out how we're showing up inside the marketplace, right? So we have to show up with so much energy and so much enthusiasm that we almost expect entropy and that disorder to happen. So when it does show up, that disruption does show up inside of our clinics, we understand that we have a big enough vision and a big enough why that we just step over that disruption and just say like, hey, is this part of that 10% or is this something that we really need to look at? So a great example of this is we used to send emails out, like hundreds of emails to our patient list. And I would always get, my office manager would lean in and be like, hey, a patient was complaining about the emails. And I said, okay, well, is this a patient issue or is this like patients? Like, is there multiple? And she was like, no, it's like 2 or 3 patients. And at the time, per month, we were sending out almost like 20,000 emails a month to our patients. So for only like 2 or 3 people to respond, that was actually pretty good. So we always had a rule that like if 10% of our patients or 10% of our staff was complaining about something, that's when we went to take a look a little bit deeper to see if there was something that like we needed to change, or like was that a theory of constraint kind of thing, like we need to remove that constraint, or is this something that we anticipate? So I learned this, that there's going to be 10% of patients that no matter what you do, like you could literally tell them like, hey, John, go ahead and just drive your car off a cliff and let me know how that feels. They go ahead and drive their car off the cliff and they come back and they're like, I don't know what you did, but that was absolutely amazing. Like, it was the best experience I ever had. And you're like, what are you even talking about? Then you're gonna have 10% of people that, like, no matter what you do, you just can't please them, right? That's kind of the part of that chaos, that disorder, that entropy. For whatever reason, they just don't jive with you or your team. They're just kind of like, no matter what you do, we all know it. Like, I see even some of you guys laughing here on the video where it's just like, we just can't please them. It's just what it is. We all have Bettys in our clinic, or insert whatever name you guys have for that person. But then what we're really talking about here is that 80% in the middle. They could go either way, right? So it's just like, we have 80% here that you need to show up, and they could either move towards disorder, or they could move towards results, and they could move towards, hitting their goals. So we just need to understand, like, hey, like, that 80% is kind of who we're showing up for. And you could extrapolate this over to your life, because if we think about it, like, there's 365 days a year. And if you look at 365 days, there's gonna be 36 days a year that are amazing. Like, these are amazing days, and it's just like, oh my God, that was like a really good day. And you're like, that was part of that 10%. And then you're also gonna have 10% of your days that are like, it's a bad day. Maybe someone passed away, or something didn't go well with your kids, or maybe you and your wife or your husband were butting heads, or it's a pretty terrible day. And you're gonna have 36 of those throughout the year. And if you think about it, that's like 3 bad days a month, 3 really amazing days a month. And then we're kind of sitting here with 24 days, just kind of like, meh, right? Just another day. So it's one of those things that I want you guys to understand. We want to turn those 24 days into more positive days. And when those bad days just show up, it's like, is this like my life right now? Like, is this like a dark cloud over me? Or is this one of those 3 days a month that we're just not gonna be well, right? Not gonna go the way that we want it to. Yeah, and if you have 3 days a month and one day happens every week, it might seem like every week something's happening. But I want you guys to understand that the law of entropy is real. It's going to be anything left to itself moves more and more towards disorder. It's one thing that I understand, and that's why I need to show up with so much energy in my life and in my business and everything like that, because I just know that everything wants to move towards chaos, and I don't want to move towards chaos with it. So if you guys like this video, follow and subscribe to our page. If you guys want to learn more about how leveraging some of these principles in your business, go ahead and click on the description to schedule a call with one of our team members, and we look forward to meeting you. And I'll see you guys on the next video.